He begins by asking a question that almost no one likes to face. Why are some people ignored, interrupted, and disrespected, even though they are polite, competent, and well-intentioned? The answer lies not in a lack of worth, but in excessive concessions. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, shows that the world does not respond to naive kindness. It responds to posturing. Machiavelli already said, even without using those words, that trying to be liked by everyone is the quickest way to lose ground. And that hurts, because it goes against everything they've been taught since childhood. He provokes with a counterintuitive truth. The more you try to please, the less respect you receive. Not because of people's malice, but because of real human nature. The end justifies the means when the goal is to stop being treated as an option and start being seen as a choice. It's better to be feared than loved. When love demands that you explain yourself, diminish yourself, or accept constant intrusions. Avoiding being hated remains intelligent, but never at the cost of one's own dignity. The appearance of virtue without clear limits becomes an invitation to silent abuse, and the promise is straightforward. You don't need to shout, fight, or become someone you're not. You just need to shift your internal axis. Throughout this video, he shows how small, silent, and firm decisions immediately reposition you. Virtù and fortuna begin to work in your favor when you stop begging for approval and start following your own rules. The calculated use of force lies in calmness, not aggression. If you apply this, people will change their behavior without you asking for anything. And when that happens, something rare emerges: immediate respect. If something inside you awakened while listening, don't ignore that feeling. This channel isn't about videos, it's about memories. Remember who you were before the fear, before the exhaustion, before the silence. Each new video here is a different reflection of your own soul, an invitation to understand what the world never taught you. The power you seek outside has always been within you. If you feel that this journey speaks to what lives silently within you, sign up now. Not to follow yet another creator, but to reconnect with something the world tried to make you forget. Because here, every word was made to heal, each reflection to awaken, and each video serves as a reminder, you are not alone on the path back to yourself. Click on subscribe, and turn the algorithm into a daily reminder of who you really are. He observes that almost no one notices when they begin to lose power, because it happens while smiling. The constant pursuit of being liked seems harmless, even noble, but in practice, it hands over emotional control to those who should least have it. When someone needs approval, they adjust their tone, opinions, and posture, and this predictability is a silent invitation to disrespect. Machiavelli already warned that politics guided by reality, not by ideals, demands lucidity about real human nature. People respect those who respect themselves first, not those who adapt too much. The end justifies the means when the goal is to preserve dignity and autonomy. Those who seek to be liked too much begin to accept interruptions, delays, and invasions of boundaries as if they were normal. The appearance of virtue becomes a trap when it replaces firmness. It's better to be feared than loved when love costs you your position. This is not about aggressiveness, but about internal structure. Virtù and fortuna favor those who act consciously, not out of neediness. External validation becomes a silent vice, and vice is always exact interest. When the person realizes it, they are already explaining too much, and those who explain too much lose ground. He often says that predictable people are easy to push out of line. When someone is always available, always understanding, always chill, the other person quickly learns that there are no consequences. Real human nature responds to clear stimuli, not good intentions. That's why those who beg for attention receive less, and those who calmly withdraw are usually sought after. The cycle is cruel, but simple. The more you seek approval, the less respect you receive. The calculated use of force begins in silence and strategic absence. Machiavelli never spoke of rudeness. He spoke of a cold reading of the game. Your own loyal armies begin from within, with decisions based on values, not applause. The person who changes their discourse to please communicates insecurity, even without opening their mouth. Scarcity generates value because it forces the other person to pay attention. Constant adaptability is not about molding yourself to everyone. It's about choosing when to yield. Those who understand this stop explaining other people's delays and begin to reorganize their own schedules. And something curious happens. Respect arises unbidden. But this requires giving up the comfort of being liked. He often uses a simple example to illustrate this. Observe who always confirms their attendance and who only confirms when they want to. One is treated as a given, the other as a choice. Basic, almost childish psychology. We value the scarce and ignore the abundant, even when we say the opposite. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, demands accepting this fact without resentment. It's not about manipulation, but about stopping self-sacrifice. The end justifies the means when the means is to regain one's own balance. Those who live seeking to be liked confuse kindness with submission, and submission never generates lasting respect. It's better to be feared than loved when love comes without limit. Avoiding being hated doesn't mean accepting everything. It means acting with precision. The appearance of virtue can coexist with firmness, as long as there are consequences. Virtue is knowing when to retreat and when to stand firm. Fortuna favors those who don't desperately seek acceptance. When that key turns, something changes internally. But understanding weakness is only the beginning. The next step involves learning how respect is truly built. He teaches that respect doesn't arise from long speeches or emotional confrontations, but from clear lines supported by real consequences. When someone crosses a line and nothing happens, the human mind registers permission. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, starts from this simple principle. What doesn't generate cost is repeated. Machiavelli never advocated shouting or aggression, but rather the calculated use of force, often silent. Respect is predictability in rules and unpredictability in reaction. Those who remain calm communicate control, and control generates natural hierarchy. Loyal armies begin with self-control, not reactivity. Avoiding being hated doesn't mean being passive. It means acting with surgical precision. The appearance of virtue only works when there is structure behind it. It's better to be feared than loved when love comes with constant invasions. Virtue appears when someone sustains difficult decisions without drama. Fortune usually smiles on those who don't negotiate internal limits. Without consequence, every rule becomes a suggestion. And suggestions are quickly ignored. He often illustrates this with everyday, almost banal situations. A friend cancels 3 times in a row. Instead of arguing, stop waiting. Silence reorganizes the game better than any explanation. A colleague talks over you? Pause, look calmly, and conclude your argument as if nothing had happened. This pause creates discomfort, and discomfort educates. Someone repeats your idea as if it were their own. A simple, as I said before, repositions authorship without aggression. This is politics guided by reality, not by ideals. The end justifies the means when the means is to preserve space. There is no shouting, no scene. There is consequence. Calculated use of force is exactly that. Minimum energy, maximum effect. Decisions based on real human nature always consider the impact, not the intention. Those who understand this don't waste time convincing. They just act, and the environment adjusts. Setting boundaries without drama is a rare and extremely powerful skill. It teaches that the more emotion you put into it, the less authority remains. Virtue is maintaining composure even when the other person tests you. Fortuna favors those who don't engage in unnecessary emotional negotiations. Instead of long justifications, short actions, less availability, less access, less priority. Your own loyal armies don't ask permission to protect themselves. It's better to be feared than loved when love demands self-annihilation. Avoiding being hated remains the rule, but not at the cost of your own dignity. The appearance of virtue remains intact when the consequence is silent. The calculated use of force rarely needs to be repeated because the first time already teaches. Those who learn this realize something curious. Respect begins to emerge even before words are spoken. But understanding consequences is only part of the game. True power appears when you realize who really controls each interaction. He often states something that bothers many people. In every human interaction, someone is in control, even when no one realizes it. Control rarely lies with the one who talks the most, explains the most, or tries to please. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, stems from the recognition of this invisible game. Those who need to be liked have already relinquished their position before the conversation even begins. Machiavelli understood that power is not announced. It manifests itself through behavior. The end justifies the means when the means is to regain emotional autonomy. It is better to be feared than loved when love demands constant validation. Avoiding being hated does not mean diminishing oneself. It means acting with strategic coldness. The appearance of virtue can coexist with firmness as long as there is coherence. Virtue is knowing when to speak and especially when to be silent. Fortuna tends to favor those who do not beg for space. Control is born from emotional independence. Those who do not need to please, choose, and those who choose, lead. Regaining control doesn't require rehearsed speeches or an artificial posture. It teaches something simple and uncomfortable. Speak less, but with intention. Short, calm sentences carry more weight than long explanations. Decisions based on real human nature consider impact, not momentary emotion. Instead of reacting to others' moods, a person begins to act based on their own values. This changes everything. When someone establishes clear conditions, this works for me, this doesn't work, the game is reorganized. The calculated use of force appears in the firmness of the tone, not in the volume. Your own loyal armies begin with self-governance. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, doesn't seek approval, it seeks positioning. Those who speak little but always act the same way become a reference, and a reference doesn't ask for respect, it receives it. But there's a detail that few master. The element of unpredictability. He often warns that excessive predictability turns anyone into an easy pawn. When others know exactly how someone reacts, where they yield, and when they retreat, control has already been lost. Unpredictability is not instability, it's freedom of choice. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it passes, sometimes it simply doesn't appear. This confuses expectations and repositions power. Virtue lies in acting by one's own decision, not by external pressure. Fortuna usually favors those who don't let themselves be pushed emotionally. It's better to be feared than loved when predictability breeds abuse. Avoiding being hated remains the rule, but not at the cost of autonomy. The appearance of virtue remains when actions are consistent, even if they are not convenient. The end justifies the means when the means is to move away from a reactive position. Whoever understands this begins to perceive something subtle. True power lies not in controlling others, but in not being controlled. And this understanding opens the way to a silent addiction that needs to be broken. He often says that praise is cheap to give, but extremely expensive when someone starts shaping their life around it. Approval works like sugar, immediate pleasure, silent dependence. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, demands recognizing this addiction before it becomes identity. When a person lives reacting to applause, they lose their inner balance. Machiavelli already understood that those who are driven by external validation are easily led. The end justifies the means when the means is to recover emotional sobriety. It's better to be feared than loved when love comes conditionally. Avoiding being hated doesn't mean seeking applause, it means acting with consistency. The appearance of virtue becomes a prison when it replaces authenticity. Virtue appears when someone manages to remain whole even without recognition. Fortuna tends to abandon those who live seeking approval. The calculated use of force begins with self-control. Those who depend on praise live negotiating with themselves, and this negotiation always demands something in return. Breaking this cycle doesn't require isolation or artificial coldness, but awareness. It suggests something simple: breathe before reacting to compliments. A second of pause restores control. Instead of inflating oneself or justifying oneself, the person observes. Decisions based on real human nature stem from values, not momentary emotions. Checking one's own criteria before accepting anything changes the game. Saying "I can't" or "this isn't for me" calmly creates immediate respect. The calculated use of force lies in the serenity of refusal. Your own loyal armies begin when you protect yourself from invitations that don't make sense. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, doesn't promise to please, it promises coherence. Those who learn to say no without guilt realize something curious: the world doesn't crumble. On the contrary, it adjusts. He emphasizes that being the same person everywhere is one of the greatest signs of silent power. Masks become tiresome and create emotional dependence. The appearance of virtue doesn't need to change according to the environment when there is internal structure. Virtue is remaining stable even under social pressure. Fortuna tends to favor those who don't fragment themselves to belong. It's better to be feared than loved when love demands constant pretense. Avoiding being hated remains prudent, but not at the cost of identity. The end justifies the means when the means are integrity. The calculated use of force appears in tranquil firmness. Those who abandon the vice of approval begin to feel something rare: lightness, less need to explain, less fear of disappointing. But this freedom comes at an initial price, and that's where simple rules come in that few have the courage to follow. He teaches that excessive words dilute authority. The more someone explains themselves, the more insecurity they convey, even when they are right. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, understands that actions speak a language no one ignores. Machiavelli already warned that real power is not sustained by justifications, but by visible decisions. The end justifies the means when the means is to end unproductive cycles. Speaking less is not being cold, it is being clear. Your own loyal armies begin when you govern your own behavior. Instead of trying to convince, the person starts to act. They end conversations, leave the room, stop helping without prior notice. The calculated use of force lies in this discreet movement. It is better to be feared than loved when love demands endless explanations. Avoiding being hated remains the rule, but without self-annihilation. The appearance of virtue remains when there is coherence between speech and action. He observes that those who talk too much tend to get caught up in their own discourse. When someone tries to explain the same thing 10 times, they lose control of the narrative. True human nature respects those who set boundaries and move on. Decisions based on true human nature don't ask permission to exist. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, acts first and observes later. The end justifies the means when the means is to preserve energy. Virtue appears when someone ends unproductive interactions without resentment. Fortuna tends to favor those who don't get caught up in excessive dialogue. The calculated use of force lies in knowing when to leave before the conversation turns into emotional negotiation. Loyal and dedicated armies are not at the mercy of others' moods. Those who learn to act more and speak less realize that respect begins to take root in silence. He is direct. Seeking approval is outsourcing one's own value. When someone calls incessantly, adjusts words to please, or tries to anticipate expectations, they have already lost ground. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, doesn't chase after things, he observes. Machiavelli understood that those who make themselves too available become disposable. The end justifies the means when the means is to recover dignity. Calm indifference is power because it disarms emotional games. It's better to be feared than loved when love depends on constant effort. Avoiding being hated doesn't require submission, it requires clarity. The appearance of virtue remains when someone doesn't sell themselves for acceptance. Virtue appears when a person remains firm even under external silence. Fortune favors those who don't beg for something in return. But to sustain this, one must learn to remain cold when tested. He teaches that emotional attacks are always a test of control. Those who react impulsively lose their position instantly. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, recognizes that provocations exist to throw someone off balance. Machiavelli knew that the calculated use of force begins with inner restraint. Breathing, pausing, and responding in short sentences is not weakness, it's mastery. Decisions based on real human nature understand that those who become agitated surrender power. Your own loyal armies begin when the mind doesn't panic. It's better to be feared than loved, when love demands reactivity. Avoiding being hated doesn't mean defending yourself against everything, but choosing your battles. The appearance of virtue is maintained when there is no emotional explosion. Virtue appears when someone doesn't take the bait. Fortuna favors those who remain still, while the other wears themselves down. If your feelings aren't moved, they don't influence your choices, and that completely changes the game. He often warns that when people know all your patterns, they begin to control them. Excessive predictability breeds silent manipulation. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, understands that power requires a margin of uncertainty. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it appears, sometimes it disappears. This isn't a game, it's a conscious choice. Virtue lies in not feeling obligated to always conform. Fortuna favors those who don't have to explain themselves for changing course. It's better to be feared than loved when predictability breeds abuse. Avoiding being hated remains prudent, but not at the cost of autonomy. The calculated use of force appears when someone acts on their own decision, not on external expectation. Loyal and independent armies don't follow external scripts. Those who act by choice break patterns, and those who break patterns reposition respect. He is clear. Whoever gives 5 warnings teaches the other to ignore the first 4. Limits need to be quick, silent, and consistent. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, understands that consequences educate more than discourse. Fewer invitations, less access, less priority. This communicates without hurting. The end justifies the means when the means is to preserve space. Better to be feared than loved when love depends on tolerating disrespect. Avoiding being hated doesn't require lengthy explanations, only consistency. The appearance of virtue remains when the consequence is proportional. Virtue appears in the immediate decision. Fortuna favors those who do not threaten, only execute. The calculated use of force lies in withdrawing access, not in creating conflict. People learn when access changes. But when access changes too much, something bigger begins to happen. Personal value is reorganized by scarcity. He explains that scarcity is not emotional absence, but conscious management of access. When someone is always available, responds to everything immediately, and automatically says yes, the other person's brain registers excess, and excess loses value. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, understands that value arises from limitation, not from infinite supply. Machiavelli already observed that those who distribute themselves too much weaken their own position. The end justifies the means when the means is to protect energy and time. It is better to be feared than loved when love demands total availability. Avoiding being hated does not mean always being present, it means being consistent. The appearance of virtue is maintained when absence is strategic, not resentful. Virtue appears when someone chooses when to enter and when to leave. Fortuna favors those who do not allow themselves to be consumed. The calculated use of force lies in not reacting to everything. Scarcity creates value because it forces the other to reconsider, and reconsideration generates respect. It brings practical, simple changes, almost uncomfortable at first. Not responding to everything immediately reorganizes the power dynamic. Not saying yes to every invitation returns authority over one's own agenda. Not helping those who don't respect your time protects invisible boundaries. Decisions based on real human nature understand that others learn by pattern, not by discourse. Politics guided by reality, not by ideals, acts calmly and observes the effect. Your own loyal armies begin when you prioritize what really matters. The calculated use of force appears in strategic delay, not in rudeness. It's better to be feared than loved. When love becomes a demand, avoiding being hated remains prudent, but not at the cost of one's own sanity. The appearance of virtue remains when the choice is silent. Virtue lies in sustaining absence without guilt. Fortuna favors those who don't explain themselves for preserving themselves. He emphasizes that distance is not emotional detachment, but mental clarity. When someone distances themselves a little, they begin to see patterns, abuses, and imbalances more clearly. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, requires this space for cold analysis. The end justifies the means when the means are lucidity. It is better to be feared than loved when love confuses. Avoiding being hated does not mean remaining accessible. It means acting consciously. The appearance of virtue is not lost when there is internal coherence. Virtue appears when someone does not rush to please. Fortuna favors those who think before responding. The calculated use of force lies in not explaining oneself during silence. One's own loyal armies are strengthened by strategic retreat. When scarcity sets in, something changes in the environment. But the real effects only appear when the concrete results of this new positioning are observed. He often says that results appear first in relationships, and almost always silently. Quantity decreases, but quality rises dramatically. People who only approached out of convenience drift away on their own, while few remain with genuine respect. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, teaches that this is not loss, it's filtering. Machiavelli would understand this movement as a reorganization of territory. The end justifies the means when the means is to leave unbalanced relationships. It's better to be feared than loved when love comes loaded with subtle abuse. Avoiding being hated remains important, but not at the cost of one's own peace. The appearance of virtue remains when the posture is firm and consistent. Virtue appears when someone doesn't try to please in order to maintain bonds. Fortuna favors those who accept being alone for a while. The calculated use of force lies in not rescuing relationships that have already died, and this creates space for something better. Trust also changes in nature. It's no longer that inflated confidence dependent on praise or external validation. It's a silent, stable trust that doesn't need to be announced. Decisions based on real human nature build this kind of inner security. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, doesn't promise immediate emotional comfort, but solidity. Your own loyal armies begin when you trust your own judgment. The calculated use of force appears in the tranquility of choices. Better to be feared than loved, when love required constant effort. Avoiding being hated doesn't mean pleasing, it means not acting impulsively. The appearance of virtue is sustained when there is no internal contradiction. Virtue appears when someone stops doubting themselves with every external reaction. Fortuna favors those who don't need to explain their existence, and this trust begins to attract opportunities. He observes that over time, opportunities begin to arrive without pursuit. Invitations arise, proposals appear, doors open, not because someone chased after them, but because they became a point of reference. Politics, guided by reality, not by ideals, understands that value attracts, scarcity repels. The end justifies the means when the means is to stop begging for space. It's better to be feared than loved when love distracts. Avoiding being hated remains prudent, but not at the cost of one's own ambition. The appearance of virtue remains when the focus is on one's own path. Virtue appears when someone chooses calmly. Fortuna favors those who do not live in emotional alert. The calculated use of force lies in saying less yes and more I choose. Stress decreases because choices cease to depend on the mood of others, and this freedom prepares the ground for the final message that ties it all together. He concludes by reminding us of something few accept at first. It's not labels, positions, or titles that make someone strong. It's their inner posture that gives weight to any external stance. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, demands understanding that respect doesn't arise from trying to please, but from the coherence between what is accepted and what is rejected. Machiavelli already made it clear that power begins within, in self-governance. The end justifies the means when the means is to preserve dignity. It's better to be feared than loved, when love demands silent submission. Avoiding being hated remains prudent, but never at the cost of one's own identity. The appearance of virtue only has value when it doesn't contradict firmness. Virtue appears when someone sustains difficult choices without over-explaining. Fortuna favors those who don't negotiate principles for comfort. The calculated use of force lies in following one's own rules. Whoever understands this stops justifying themselves and begins to take a stand. He emphasizes that being calm, lucid, and respected is not a result of volume, but of consistency. Those who shout lose strength. Those who maintain composure transmit authority. Decisions based on real human nature consider limits, consequences, and time. A loyal and independent army is not formed with empty charisma, but with a predictable stance on rules and firmness in actions. Politics guided by reality, not ideals, doesn't promise to be loved by everyone. It promises to be respected by those who matter. The end justifies the means when the means is to stop begging for validation. It's better to be feared than loved when love confuses respect with unlimited access. Avoiding being hated remains intelligence, not submission. The appearance of virtue remains when calmness is not weakness. Virtue appears in daily discipline. Fortuna favors those who act with clarity, and this clarity changes everything around us. He concludes by leaving something implicit, almost unsettling. Those who follow their own rules rarely need to explain who they are. The world observes, tests pressures, and learns. Politics, guided by reality, not ideals, accepts that not everyone will like it. The end justifies the means when the means is freedom. It's better to be feared than loved when love demands constant concessions. Avoiding being hated remains strategic, but it's not an absolute priority. The appearance of virtue is not lost when there is integrity. Virtue lies in sustaining the path, even when there is external silence. Fortuna favors those who do not deviate to please. The calculated use of force lies in remaining firm. Whoever understands this comes to control their own value. But understanding is only the beginning. Applying is what separates those who only listen from those who truly change. He concludes with a direct call to action, because knowledge without application becomes merely sophisticated entertainment. Now that you understand how respect truly works, through politics guided by reality, not ideals, the question is no longer, does this make sense? But what will you change from today onward? The end justifies the means when the means is to regain control of your own life. How many times have you said yes when you wanted to say no? How many times have you over-explained yourself hoping for understanding? Each of these choices has shaped how the world treats you. He provokes, who controls your time today? Who defines your limits? If the answer isn't you, then there's still room for adjustment. It's better to be feared than loved, when love demands that you diminish yourself. Avoiding being hated remains intelligent, but never at the cost of your autonomy. The appearance of virtue only has value when it goes hand in hand with firmness. Virtue is born when you act with clarity, even under discomfort. Fortuna appears when you stop begging and start choosing. The calculated use of force lies in small daily decisions. Speaking less, acting more, withdrawing access, maintaining silence. He leaves the final reflection hanging in the air. Who do you need to stop trying to please in order to start being respected? Where are you still trading your worth for acceptance? If something in this video bothered you, great. Discomfort is a sign of growth. Now apply it, test it, observe it. And if you want to continue learning how to act with strategy, clarity, and quiet power, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, you don't learn to please the world, you learn to position yourself in it.